Okay, good morning, everybody. It is Friday, August 27th, 2021. We're essentially the last week of August here. We do have, I believe, Monday and Tuesday of next week for the month to end, but this is the last full week in the month of August here. Hopefully, moving into the fall, we'll get a little bit more volatility, a little more volume going on in the market, and we'll go ahead and get started here with our pre-market analysis on the S&P 500 futures market. So the last few days have been somewhat sideways. So, it's been a little difficult up in this area. We've been talking about 75 to 85, 75 to 90 here. That really was not a great area to be trading in. And so we find ourselves kind of right smack in the middle of that range coming into this morning. So it just is what it is. We'll see what we can kind of gather here, looking at all of the different time frames here. So jumping up to our quarterly and our monthly here, both looking very strong, no signs of exhaustion. And on the weekly, we are now down to the last day of this week. What I don't like seeing here is the fact that we pushed up to make this new all-time high in comparison to the week that closed on August 13th here, but the RVI is still lower. So let's actually bring this, there we go. So you can see that we are still significantly lower on the RVI. So do not like seeing that. If we end up closing today, even if the market does continue to push into the close today, if the RVI is still below the previous RVI, that's not a great thing to be seeing here. But again, we do have to wait for this candle to close and for this signal to finally find its spot. So we're going to have to give it till the end of today to look at this chart. Outside of that potential situation forming there, everything else looks extremely strong here on our weekly. On our daily, we did have the bearish indication off of the highs that we made on August 25th. And we talked about the fact that we did have a bearish divergence and that we don't want to necessarily be ignoring that signal. And so ever since that did form, we have pushed from about, let's say, 44.95 all the way down to the low that we made in the overnight session at 44.62. So about a 20 to 25 point move there. So nothing huge so far, but definitely a nice little correction so far off of that bearish indication on the daily. What I'm seeing now is that, so if we look at the candle that officially closed, which is really the only thing that we could hang our hats on this morning, we don't have any bearish or bullish indications off that candle. From a divergence perspective, of course, the candle itself is a big red candle there. But outside of that, we don't have that bearish indication on that candle. And what I'm noticing off the candle that's, today's candle, which has all of today and whatever it is, about 8 hours of price action before it officially closes, we do have this situation where the market has pushed significantly higher, making much higher lows compared to the low that we made back on August 19th. But the RVI, if you take a look down here, is actually significantly lower. So we have a much higher low, but a much lower low on RVI. So we'll have to kind of watch this again. This is just like the weekly. We have all day for this to form and officially close. And this signal, although it's down here right now, could very well close up here and we would not have that bullish potential divergence there. So right now, there's really nothing too concrete to make off of this candle, but we do have that bearish indication from the all-time high back on August 25th here. On our 4-hour, we did get a pretty decent bullish divergence off the overnight low. So right now we do have, if the picture here on the daily stays exactly the same and it closes and it's looking like this, we have the bullish divergence on the daily. We have a very clear, actually official bullish divergence signal here on the 4-hour as well off the overnight low. On top of that, if you look at the candle itself, pretty bullish looking, almost a reversal type of candle there off of our overnight low. So from our daily and our 4-hour perspective, there is somewhat of a bullish case to be made off the overnight low. And then our 3 ultra high time frames all look very strong with no indications of exhaustion. So things are actually looking fairly strong here. Of course, that doesn't mean we're not going to get a deeper pullback, but just going through our signals here, our 60-minute now also agreeing with that bullish divergence off the overnight low. I actually took this long from 63.25 last night, was able to ride it all the way up to 80, and then I got out when it could not continue to get through 80 and I had to go to sleep. So I think we pushed to 80, where was it? Back right around here, 78, and then we stayed sideways here and I ended up getting out at some point around 9-10 o'clock last night when I was trying to just head to bed there. But we do have another 60 minutes, so we have 60-minute, 4-hour, and maybe daily bullish divergence off the lows right now. Now, when you jump down and you get more resolution off of these highs that we made in the pre-market session, the 4-hour does not have a bearish indication off the overnight high, but the 60-minute does here. So we do want to keep that in mind here now coming into the open, that we do have a bearish indication on the 60-minute, which is a pretty strong time frame for our intraday trading here. But we also do, again, have that bullish divergence agreeing with what we saw on the 4-hour and the daily. So let's go down to our intermediate time frames and see if we're getting any agreement there. I did actually forget one thing here on the 60-minute, and that is the fact that we did just get a bullish divergence on this pullback here. So we could probably even look at this at a retracement perspective, and you can see that we're right at the 50% retracement where we got the bullish divergence, and it actually pushed from 73 almost 7 points there. So just interesting to note that it did hold the 50% and arguably that previous resistance point around 72 there, at least for now. So let's go to our intermediate time frames here and see if we can get some confirmation on those signals. So there's our 30-minute bearish divergence off the overnight high. So the 60-minute is getting some agreement as we dial down to the intermediate time frames here of that bearish case off the overnight high. We do have agreement off the overnight low, another bullish divergence. So we can see so far, going from the ultra high time frames all the way down to the 30-minute, we basically are bullish off the overnight low, or just bullish in general when we get to those higher time frames. So we have a lot more bullish indications off the overnight low than we do have this bearish signal off the overnight high. Just because we do have more off the lows doesn't necessarily mean 100% that that's going to be the one that ends up holding here. But we do have a lot more signals showing bullishness than we do bearishness at the moment. And then we can see here on the 60-minute, we talked about the bullish divergence here off this small pullback to the 50% retracement of this leg. Go ahead and draw it up on this one as well. Just in front of the 50% by one tick there, it bounced. We got that bullish divergence there on the 30-minute as well. So everything is basically agreeing, which is a good thing. And then let's go to our 10-minute here. And sure enough, the 10-minute as well. Bullish divergence off the overnight low. And this is one of those situations where we have a bunch of lows all at the same level. So right at 62.25, but the RVI had pushed down and then the RVI pushed up, all different RVI levels there. So definitely also have that bullish divergence in two situations there off the lows. So 10-minute also does have that bullish indication off the lows. You can even maybe make an argument here that you have this kind of swing low here, and then the RVI swinged higher from the low end perspective there. So push lower in price, push higher on RVI. Plus we have those local subsequent bar type divergences there as well. So 10-minute had the bullish divergence down there, and then also agrees with the 30-minute and the 60-minute with that overnight high bearish signal. And then you can see the 10-minute also agreeing with this bull signal off the pullback to the 50% level. So we've got a pretty good agreement this morning. We have more bullish indications off the overnight low than we do bearish indications off the overnight high. So just weighing the two sides there, it would give us a little bit more of a bullish bias this morning. Ideally, they're going to want to hold that overnight low in order for this bullish bias to continue to follow through here. And then if we look at the current leg where we have all the bullish indications from, the 61.8 to 50% retracement right back to this previous resistance point in the market from the beginning of Globex last afternoon, right around that 71.50 to maybe down to 70.50 here would be a good level to see them hold. Or a little bit deeper, we do have an eye level sitting here at 44.69, is also where we had another pretty good resistance point from the Globex session yesterday afternoon that ideally we'd like to see the bulls hold. If the price comes all the way back down into these lower levels, not really an ideal case there, but still if they end up holding 62.25 here, we could potentially see a continuation higher, and we would expect them to hold somewhere and continue to push this morning, just going off of all those signals. So I think that's really where it leaves us.